going on, guys? It's your boy Luke here for our daily jock market preview for the cash market tonight. In this video, we'll cover my top 6 targets for the IPO phase and people that I'll have my eye on. Last night was yet another profitable night. We had a lot of injury news, a really nice situation with AD being rolled out about 30 seconds before the IPO closed, which I was definitely keen to take advantage of. On the screen here, I'll go ahead and show you guys my portfolio from last night. Ended up profiting over $165, obviously carried by LeBron and Trae Young. Trae Young was somebody we identified during the targets yesterday, so that was not a surprise to find him in my pool there. We also had De'Aaron Fox, who finished as a top 7 scorer. We added Kelly Oubre on there with some of the injury news from the Hornets. And of course, our only dud was Russell Westbrook, which is going to happen from time to time. He had a very good situation last night. I reacted late to the AD news to try and get him. Actually got outbid a little bit. I tried to get 10 shares of him, so perhaps it's lucky that I only ended up with 6. But either way, yet another profitable night. If you guys can't see, my strategy is obviously to try and diversify when I can. I don't try to put all my eggs in one basket. And while it would have been nice to have 30 shares of LeBron last night, it also would have been a little bit reckless. So if you guys are playing jock market yourselves, I highly recommend you guys take 4, maybe even 5 players that you really like to go out and diversify that risk. Because as you guys can see, the rewards are still definitely there. With that being said, with all this momentum that we have, we haven't had a losing night on the jock market since we started this series. Let's go ahead and keep this going for today's slate. The first guy I've got my eye on tonight is going to be Terence Davis of the Sacramento Kings. Last night against the Hornets, everyone had their eyes on that game, and to me it's surprising to see Davis this low. He was extremely impressive. He has started the last 4 games for the Kings, and in those games has averaged right around 30 minutes per game and a 28% usage rate. That is ridiculous for Terence Davis. He was a 33% usage rate off of the bench. We expected that to go way down as a starter, but that just hasn't been the case. He's kind of like a mini Russell Westbrook, where he goes out there, he's going to push the pace for you, gets you a lot of those slashing type of baskets. So for me, against the Cavaliers, while it's not the best matchup on the slate, they do run with a relatively high pace. They're right around league average in terms of their efficiency. It's really just the minutes that he's getting and the fact that he should be projected closer to 30 points rather than 20 points like he is by the jock market. So for me, if we can get him for less than $3.50, not only is he giving you a relatively high floor, but this guy can go out and score 20 real points, get you some of those peripherals, and crack the top 20 on this slate, which would lead to some massive returns. So either way, like adding him to the portfolio as a way to diversify and give yourself a little bit of safety. Next up, we have Io. Io for the Bulls is somebody who started ever since Zach LaVine, DeRozan, all of them have kind of started to get injured. You've had one or even both of them missing for the last 2 or 3 games. And tonight, because of COVID protocols, you're going to be missing 4 or even 5 of the Bulls. There could even be more players added to that list. That means that Io is going to be put back into the starting lineup. He's been relatively effective aside from his last time out. He was chalk. He was right around 40% owned, went out, only scored 9 fantasy points on the jock market. So a lot of people are going to be avoiding him, but let's take a little bit of a broader look. Just take a look at those 2 or 3 games prior to that. He was extremely effective, very consistent, putting up stats all around the board, peripherals, scoring, steals, assists, you name it. So for me, I look at that last game as the outlier rather than the actual median. So for me, I'll be going back to him. He comes in as the pre-ranked number 52nd ranked player, which is just far too low, particularly if he starts tonight. I have him projected closer to 33 fantasy points. That would put him at number 31 on my board. So if we can get him for less than $4, you're going to see a lot of Bulls on this list. A lot of it has to do with the COVID protocols and the people that'll be missing tonight. The matchup against the Heat isn't ideal, but when we only have 5, maybe 7 players active tonight, and those last 2 might not even be much of the rotation. You might be talking like 15, maybe 18 minutes for both of those players. These starters are going to get a ridiculous amount of run. So it doesn't really matter the matchup in that kind of instance. As long as they're playing 35, 40 minutes, going to be really hard not to pay off that kind of price. Next up, we have Seth Curry. This is the matchup of the Currys. We saw this a few weeks ago, and both of them absolutely went off. And while I don't usually like playing into narratives, both of them are just being a little bit overlooked on this slate too. So you get a little bit of a boost with the Curry uncarried narrative. Last time out, Seth Curry gave Stephen a real run for his money. In the first half, was absolutely blowing them out in terms of scoring. Stephen in the second half really started to turn it up. And these teams, the Warriors and the 76ers, they love to score some points. They love to chuck up a ton of three-pointers. So this could very quickly turn into a shootout. And the guys that you'd want in a shootout, of course, Seth Curry, he makes a lot of the three-pointers for the 76ers. And the no-brainer pick here would be Stephen Curry. You add that little narrative on top, and you get a really interesting situation here with both of these players. So Seth, there at number 44 in the pre-ranking, that is just far too low for him. I have him much closer to number 28, right around a 35-point projection. I have a similar target price on him as Io. I do think that Io is going to get a little bit more steam than somebody like a Seth Curry, especially when a lot of that injury news comes out and we do get that starting lineup. So I expect them to go to right around the same price with similar upside and similar floors as well. And number 3, we have Tyler Hero. He comes in as number 26 on the pre-rankings. This matchup against the Bulls from the other side of things is also going to be pretty nice because you're going to be dealing with players that are relatively winded. They're not going to be as efficient on the defensive side of things as a result. So players like Tyler Hero should see some easy baskets. He's also going to be starting tonight because we're not going to have Jimmy Butler in the lineup. Bam Adebayo very likely to miss as well. And in these type of games, Hero is just a usage monster, averaging over 1.35 fantasy points per minute, over a 35% usage rate. I expect huge things from him. We haven't seen that 50, 60-point game since he's been inserted into the starting lineup. But with how hot this guy gets, how many points this guy can put up in a bunch, it's going to come one of these days. So I'll be playing him here against the Bulls, especially considering the lack of bodies the Bulls have to defend him. And number 2, another guy from this Heat versus Bulls game. It's a little bit chalky, but it's well warranted in my opinion. Nikola Vukovich coming in at number 11 in the pre-rankings. I have him as the 6th ranked player on the board at a target price of $9.75. Without DeRozan in the lineup, not only are you looking at extra rebounds for somebody like Vukovich, but obviously an increased usage rate as well. He's going to go from somebody who's going to see more assists, more scoring, more rebounds, more blocks. He's going to be the main defender inside for this team. Overall, just a boost across the board for Vukovich. He was already averaging over 1.25 fantasy points per minute. I have him projected for 1.48 fantasy points per minute tonight. And with all the bodies they have missing for this team, he could very well see upwards of 36 real minutes. That puts them at about a 54-point projection. So perhaps even my projection there at number 6 is a little bit too low. I nerfed it down a little bit just to try and make it a little bit more realistic. But overall, I really like his upside tonight. And if he ends up hitting those metrics that I just outlined, could end up the number 1 play on the slate. But at number 1, Stephen Curry. I told you guys we would get to him. He comes in as the pre-ranked number 4 player. I have him at number 2 right now, only trailing Nikola Vukovich at the top, and it's pretty hard to top somebody like Nikola Vukovich. But either way, I have him at a target price of $12. We've already outlined that I think this game against the 76ers could very well be a shootout, not a blowout. A lot of people are taking Golden State here. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the NBA, but even without Joel Embiid, some of their starters like Tobias Harris and whatnot, the 76ers have looked damn good. So I think they're a little bit underrated. When they're able to get Ben Simmons out of there and get some type of return, that team is going to be the best team in the NBA. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't think it is. They're going to be getting a huge influx of talent, probably a top 25 player, a couple of role players as well, and they're already one of the best teams in the NBA. So that's perhaps a little bit of a hot take, but that's really how good their backups are. I mean, players like Tyrese Maxey, Danny Green, Korkmaz, Niang, they could be starters on almost every other roster in the NBA. So that's the kind of depth that they have. So Stephen Curry, playing up against them, we know it's going to be a relatively high-scoring game. And Stephen Curry is extremely scoring dependent, but he's also the most prolific scorer in the league when he has a shot falling. So I have him at a $12 target price. That might be a little bit steep for some of you guys out there. I understand that, but if you're able to go and get a share or two, he's not only going to give you a relatively high floor, but could end up the number 1 player on the slate. That is all I've got for today's preview. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who your favorite stock to target is for tonight. And as always, I really appreciate all of your support here on the channel, you guys coming by and enjoying the content. If you guys haven't already liked and subscribed, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. We're going to have even more NBA content coming throughout the week. And if you guys haven't heard already, I do have golf content on the channel, NFL content, whether it's for Showdown or the main slate. So make sure to subscribe so you guys don't miss any of that as well. Until next time, guys, good luck with all of your bidding for tonight, and let's get this cash.